Welcome to Geo-News Radio on Spotify.
Oh.
Brought to you by PGO Ricardo and Valls Geoconsultants.
Okay.
In this deep dive, we're journeying to the breathtaking marble caves of Chile.
Ah, the marble caves.
A spot I picked out just for you.
Okay.
Because I know you're as much of an earth enthusiast as I am.
They truly are a hidden gem.
Hidden gem is right.
Tucked away in Patagonia.
I was reading about them.
Right.
And apparently, they're carved right into the shores of General Carrera Lake.
Okay.
It's this glacial lake nestled in the Andes Mountains of southern Chile.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
The Andes themselves are a pretty impressive geological feature.
Absolutely.
Right.
The Andes are a testament to the immense power of plate tectonics.
Wow.
Picture this. Over millions of years, the Earth's crust collided, pushing upwards with incredible force.
Okay.
That collision is what created those towering peaks we see today.
It's mind-blowing how much power is packed into those slow-moving plates.
It really...
But, okay, back to the caves themselves.
Okay.
I was reading about these swirling patterns in the marble.
Right.
The article described them as looking like mineral ice cream. Honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever heard a more accurate description of a rock formation.
It's a very apt description. And those patterns weren't the only thing that's captivating.
No.
The water that fills the caves is this incredible turquoise blue.
Oh, wow.
And that vibrant color actually gives us a clue about some of the geological processes at work here.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I figured it was just reflecting the sky or something. But it does have this almost tropical vibe, even though it's glacial water.
You've hit on something important.
Okay.
That tropical-looking blue comes from glacial silt suspended in the water.
Interesting.
Imagine glaciers slowly grinding over rocks, breaking them down into a fine powder.
Okay.
That powder is glacial silt.
Right.
Sometimes called rock flour. And it's what gives both glaciers and the water in these caves their unique bluish tint.
So if I'm understanding this right,
it's
kind of like if you mixed a tiny bit of gray paint into blue. It would create this milky turquoise color.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
The glacial silt absorbs certain wavelengths of light.
Interesting.
Leaving those stunning blues and greens to reflect back to our eyes.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So we have these incredibly sculpted caves.
Right.
And this vibrantly colored water.
Yeah.
But the question that's really nagging at me is this.
Okay.
How did these caves even form in the first place?
Okay.
I mean, marble is incredibly hard, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Marble is incredibly durable.
Right.
But we need to think in terms of geological time here, not human time.
Okay.
These caves are the result of processes that took thousands, even millions of years.
Okay.
It all starts with limestone, forming near the equator millions of years ago.
Oh, wow.
Then plate tectonics. Those massive shifting puzzle pieces we talked about come into play.
Yeah.
They slowly carried those limestone deposits southwards.
Okay.
Over millions of years.
Whoa.
So the marble that makes up these caves traveled thousands of miles before even ending up in Chile.
That's a journey.
Is.
And it's a journey that's key to their formation.
Exactly. You see, once that limestone reached its southern destination, it was subjected to immense heat and pressure.
Oh.
The same forces that created the Andes Mountains.
Okay.
Over time, that heat and pressure transformed the limestone into the marble we see today.
Wow.
It's incredible to think about, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
So the limestone turned marble is in place.
Okay.
But how do we get from a solid slab of marble to these intricate caves?
Yeah.
Did the glaciers carve them out?
Okay.
Or was it something else?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of how these caves were sculpted. As the glaciers retreated, they carved out the lake basin where General Carrera Lake now sits.
Okay.
Then the newly formed lake started to work its magic.
Oh, wow.
Now, you might not think of water as a powerful force.
Right.
But over thousands of years, even seemingly gentle water can dissolve rock.
Right.
And that's what happened here.
Okay.
The lake slowly, patiently dissolved the marble. Shaping those intricate patterns we marvel at today.
So it's a combination of plate tectonics moving the rock.
Yes.
Glaciers carving out the space. and then the lake water doing the final sculpting.
Right.
It's crazy how many different forces had to come together to create something so beautiful.
It is, and that's part of what makes geology so fascinating.
Right.
We're always looking at this intricate dance of processes all playing their part in shaping our world.
Okay.
And the marble caves are such a perfect example of that.
Wow.
It's a story millions of years in the making.
Wow.
Etched in stone, right before our eyes. And speaking of those forces shaping our world, we can't overlook the role of climate change.
You're right. We can't ignore the bigger picture.
It's a topic we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
And it's important to consider how it might impact these delicate formations.
And I know the glaciers are retreating globally.
Right.
Largely due to rising temperatures.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for a place like the Marble Caves?
Right.
Which is so intimately tied to glacial processes.
That's the million-dollar question. And scientists are still working to fully understand all the potential impacts.
Right.
But we can make some educated guesses.
Okay.
Based on what we know about glacial melt and how it affects leak systems.
Okay, so less ice means less meltwater feeding into the lake.
Generally, yes.
Right.
Although the timing and volume of meltwater can be influenced by a lot of factors, like changes in precipitation patterns.
Okay.
But overall, less glacial meltwater could lead to lower lake levels over time.
That makes sense. And I'm guessing that would directly affect the caves, especially since they're partially submerged.
Yeah.
But how exactly?
Well, for starters,
Okay.
lower lake levels could expose parts of the caves that are currently underwater.
Okay.
Imagine those mineral ice cream swirls we talked about, those patterns on the walls.
Yeah.
If the water level drops, new surfaces could be exposed to the air and the elements.
So new patterns could emerge as those newly exposed surfaces erode.
Exactly.
And the existing patterns underwater might change too. Right?
Exactly.
It's all about the interplay between water and rock.
Yeah.
Shifting water levels change that interplay, potentially creating new formations and altering the way water flows through the caves. It's wild to think that even though these caves seem so permanent, they're actually constantly evolving even today.
Precisely.
Wow.
And it happens so slowly that we wouldn't notice the changes in our lifetime. But over decades, centuries, even millennia, those changes add up.
Right.
It's a beautiful reminder that Earth is a dynamic, ever-changing system.
You know, I'm starting to picture the caves as almost having a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Pulsing with the rhythm of the planet and all its changes.
I love that analogy.
Oh, see.
It really captures the interconnectedness we've been discussing.
Yeah.
The Marble Caves are this incredible microcosm of larger planetary processes. They're a product of tectonic shifts, glacial cycles, and the erosive power of water.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing how climate change adds another layer to that interconnectedness.
It makes you realize how precious and vulnerable these places are.
It does.
They offer us a window into deep time.
Yeah.
And the incredible forces that have shaped our world.
Right.
But they're also delicate and susceptible to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that underscores how important it is to study and protect them.
Okay.
Research on the Marble Caves and other formations like them can provide valuable insights into past climate changes. Those insights can then help us model potential future scenarios.
Interesting.
And understand the interconnectedness of Earth's systems.
Speaking of understanding, I have to ask.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the Marble Caves in person?
I have.
Oh, really?
It was a truly humbling experience.
Oh, wow.
Photos simply can't capture the scale and grandeur of those formations.
Wow.
The way the light plays on the water,
Right.
the intricate patterns in the marble.
Yeah.
It's almost otherworldly.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And to be inside the caves.
Right.
Surrounded by that turquoise water.
It's like stepping into another dimension.
Oh, wow.
The air is cool and damp.
Okay.
The silence broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the marble walls.
Okay.
You're surrounded by a sense of deep time.
Right.
The vastness of the forces that have shaped this landscape.
You're making me want to book a flight to Chile right now. But I have a feeling it's not exactly easy to get to these caves, is it?
You're right. They're definitely off the beaten path.
Okay.
Their location in the heart of the Patagonian Andes makes them a destination for the more adventurous traveler.
So how do people even get there?
Right.
We talked about the lake and glacial meltwater.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're talking boats?
Boats are the key.
Okay.
The caves are only accessible by water.
Really?
Which honestly adds to their mystique.
Wow.
You can hire local guides who navigate small boats through the network of channels.
Okay.
Taking you right into the heart of the caverns.
That sounds like an adventure in itself.
It is an adventure.
I'm already picturing it.
And it's crucial to go with experienced guides who know the waters and respect the environment.
Okay.
Remember, these caves are a natural treasure.
Yeah.
So it's important to visit them responsibly, leave no trace, and ensure their preservation for future generations.
Couldn't agree more.
Right.
And speaking of preservation,
are
there threats to the caves beyond the impact of climate change?
There are. One of the biggest concerns is pollution.
Right.
Increased tourism.
Yeah.
If it's not managed responsibly, can lead to water contamination.
Right.
And damage to the marble formations.
Yeah.
Think about things like boat fuel spills, sunscreen residues, even the physical impact of boats bumping against the cave walls.
Right.
Over time, those seemingly small impacts can have a big effect.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like the classic dilemma.
Right.
We want to share these incredible places with the world.
Yeah.
But we also need to protect them from the potential harm of increased visitation.
Absolutely.
It's a tough balance to strike.
Exactly.
And it requires careful planning and sustainable tourism practices.
Right.
Things like limiting the number of visitors allowed at a given time.
Yeah.
Enforcing strict guidelines for boat traffic and waste disposal.
Right.
And educating visitors about the importance of preserving the site.
It sounds like there's a lot of work being done.
Yeah.
To find that balance to protect the caves.
Right.
While allowing people to experience their wonder.
Well said.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to the broader significance of the marble caves.
Right.
You mentioned earlier that they're a window into deep time. A record of the forces that shaped our planet. Can you tell me more about that?
Of course.
Okay.
The marble caves aren't just beautiful.
Right.
They're a geological archive.
Interesting.
They hold evidence of events that span millions of years.
Wow.
The marble itself tells a story of tectonic plate movements, of ancient seas where limestone formed, and the intense pressure and heat that transformed it into the rock we see today.
So they're like a time capsule holding clues to the Earth's ancient past.
Precisely.
Wow.
And by studying the composition of the marble, the erosion patterns and the fossils that are sometimes found within the caves, scientists can piece together a timeline of geological events.
It's like they're decoding a secret language written in stone, revealing information about past climates, and even gaining insights into the evolution of life on Earth.
That blows my mind.
It really is incredible.
It's amazing to think that these formations hold so much history, so much dynamism, even though they seem so static to us.
And that's what makes geology so captivating.
Right.
It's a detective story uncovering hidden clues that tell the story of our planet.
Yeah.
The marble caves are a particularly fascinating chapter in that story.
I'm completely hooked.
Great.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you think our listeners should know about the marble caves? Any final insights or fun facts?
You know, one thing that surprises a lot of people is the age of the caves. We tend to think of geological formations as being incredibly old.
Right.
And while that's often true, the marble caves are relatively young in geological terms. Their formation began after the last glacial period, only about 10,000 to 15,000 years ago.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
I would have guessed they were millions of years old.
That's a common misconception.
Okay.
But it highlights the power of erosion in a relatively short span of geological time.
Yeah.
Water has sculpted these intricate caverns from solid marble.
It really puts things into perspective.
It does.
Thinking about those timescales, you realize how quickly, geologically speaking, landscapes can change.
Absolutely.
It reinforces the importance of studying and monitoring these places, understanding how they're continuing to evolve in response to natural forces and human influences.
That's a powerful thought.
Our planet is always in motion.
It is.
And we're a part of that story, whether we realize it or not.
Right. It is a powerful thought.
Yeah.
And it leads perfectly into my closing reflection for our listeners today.
Ooh, a closing reflection. I'm intrigued. What's on your mind?
Well, we've talked about how the marble caves are a product of immense geological forces, forces that have shaped our planet over millions of years. But at the same time, we've also seen how delicate they are, how vulnerable they are to the impacts of climate change and human activity.
Yeah.
So the question I pose to our listeners is this. How do we reconcile those seemingly contradictory aspects?
That's a great question.
How do we balance our desire to experience and explore these wonders with the responsibility to protect them for future generations?
That is a fantastic question to leave our listeners with.
Right.
It's something we all need to think about.
Yeah.
Not just when it comes to the marble caves,
right.
but in our relationship with the natural world as a whole.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I think pondering those questions is a great place for us to wrap up this episode of Geo-News Radio.
I agree.
Okay.
It's been an absolutely incredible journey exploring the marble caves with you.
It has been fun.
Thanks for sharing your expertise and passion for geology with us.
My pleasure.
And a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive.
Okay.
Before we sign off,
right.
let's quickly recap the key takeaways from our exploration.
Absolutely.
We started by talking about the incredible beauty of the marble caves.
Right.
The swirling patterns in the marble and that breathtaking turquoise water.
Yeah.
But we quickly went beyond just the aesthetics.
Okay.
And dove into the incredible geological forces that created these formations.
Exactly.
Right. We talked about tectonic plates carrying limestone thousands of miles.
Right.
Glaciers carving out lake basins. And the persistent power of water to dissolve rock and sculpt those intricate caverns.
Yeah.
We even learned how glacial silt, that fine rock flour, creates that mesmerizing blue hue in the water.
Exactly.
And we can't forget the impact of climate change.
Right.
We discussed how melting glaciers and fluctuating lake levels could alter these formations, highlighting the delicate balance at play and the interconnectedness of Earth's systems.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that these incredible places are not just static snapshots in time.
Right.
They're constantly evolving, responding to both natural processes and human influences.
Precisely.
And that brings us back to that all-important question of responsible stewardship. How do we experience and appreciate these natural wonders while ensuring their preservation for generations to come?
It's a question worth pondering long after this episode ends.
Well said.
Okay.
For all our listeners out there, I have a challenge for you.
A challenge?
I want you to go online and look up images of the marble caves.
Okay.
Let those visuals truly sink in.
Yeah.
But as you're marveling at their beauty,
right.
I want you to keep in mind everything we've discussed.
Okay.
The forces that shape them, their vulnerability, and that question of how we can be responsible stewards of our planet's treasures.
That's a great challenge.
I know our listeners are going to be blown away by those images.
Oh, absolutely.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of Geo-News Radio.
Okay.
Remember, this deep dive was part of our series on Spotify.
Yeah.
Produced by PGO Ricardo Valls.
Right.
President of Valls Geoconsultants.
Okay.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about it.
All right.
The more Earth enthusiasts, the merrier.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
Okay.
And keep marveling at the wonders of geology.
From Geo-News Radio and Valls Geoconsultants.
Thanks for listening and happy exploring.
My name is Ricardo Valls. I am a professional geologist registered in the province of Ontario, Canada, and also the president of Valls Geoconsultant. Geology, geochemistry, structural analysis, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. I am sure you will find something useful among my over 550 videos.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell.